Weekly Spooky is brought to you by our generous supporters on Patreon. Get access to exclusive podcasts, videos, and more for as little as $1 a month when you go to WeeklySpooky.com and click on the Patreon link. Your support has gotten us to 100 episodes, so join up today and help us create another 100 and beyond. Head over to WeeklySpooky.com and join the Patreon.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my friends. It's Wednesday, and that means it's time for a little taste of spooky in your weekly. I'm, of course, your host and narrator, Henrik Kuto, and we have a nasty little piece of horror to give you this week to help you feel that oh-so-fuzzy holiday feeling. And speaking of that oh-so-fuzzy holiday feeling, if you head over to WeeklySpooky.com, you'll find a link to a brand new short film called He Knows When You're Sleeping, directed by myself and sponsored by this show. It's a 5-minute horror short about what can be lurking on Christmas Eve if you let your guard down too long. But before we get to the tale, I just want to say thank you so much for listening, and if you haven't subscribed already, now is the best time to do it because we have a lot of really scary stuff coming during the holiday season, including, and I'm just announcing this now, a bonus episode on Christmas Day. That's right, while you're finishing up cooking that turkey or that ham or whatever else you may be into, you can listen to a brand new fright tale on Christmas Day. I also want to remind you at WeeklySpooky.com, if you click on Store, you can get your very own limited edition Happy Horror Days Weekly Spooky t-shirt featuring a screaming skull and a Santa hat, because it's so festive, I dare say, it's festive AF. So go check that out, because once January hits, they're gone, my friends. And a big thank you to all of our Patreon backers. I really can't thank you enough. If you're feeling generous this holiday season, go to WeeklySpooky.com, click on Patreon, and help support us for as little as $1 a month to keep the spooky coming on the weekly. But anyway, my friends, now it's time. You knew we couldn't have a holiday season without stopping by our favorite terrifying town, Strickfield. We're headed there right now for a very Christmassy story, all about creation. Lady Frankenstein by Rob Fields. December 23rd was the absolute biggest Christmas shopping day in Strickfield. Usually, most everyone was out shopping. Strickfield Town Center Mall was even packed, the one season of the year when it usually was. However, there was one person who had other plans during the holiday season. Just outside the village limits, in an old mansion that was thought to be abandoned, Vincent Frankenstein was alone in a third-floor laboratory and working on an experiment that was on a large slab. He had just finished affixing the hands to the lifeless female body. As he admired his work, he knew that his female creation would correct many of the flaws that had plagued his ancestor, Henry Frankenstein, many years ago. After finding Henry's thought-to-be-lost journals and studying them over immensely, Vincent had started work on trying to rediscover and harness that great ultraviolet ray that was said to have brought life to all things living. Vincent's first experiment was on a cat that had been hit by a car. Vincent fixed the body up as best he could. He achieved success in turning the ray on the cat and restoring life to it. After he had performed many tests on it, the cat had not shown any hostile tendencies. In fact, it acted as if it had never died, and even took nourishment upon its rebirth. Vincent had succeeded in restoring a dog to life with the same results. One experiment after another, Vincent would continue his research until he was absolutely certain that his updated process worked flawlessly. Once he felt that he had compiled enough data, he decided that he would do what Henry had accomplished on 2 occasions: to create a human being from dead parts and endow the amalgamation with life. Like his great ancestor before him, he secured fresh body parts for his creation anywhere he could obtain them. It had taken Vincent a great deal of time and a lot of preservation, but he had nearly completed a female body. All that was missing was a perfect head, and this part was where Vincent would exercise the utmost caution, for he remembered that Henry's first creation had turned out for the worst. Henry had unknowingly placed the brain of a dead criminal within the head of what became known as Frankenstein's monster. Or simply, just Frankenstein. Yes, Henry's first creation had killed many people, including a little girl who was playing by the water near her village. Vincent could not allow such a mistake to be made a second time. Henry had also recorded in another journal that he, with the help of one Dr. Septimus Pretorius, had created a female of his own, to be a companion and mate for the original creation. However, the female creation had come to reject her potential mate, and was believed to be destroyed in an explosion. Vincent had thought ahead and removed his creation's reproductive system to make her sterile so that his creation could not produce potentially dangerous offspring. Vincent had read in Strickfield's local newspaper that a young woman from North Ridgeway had recently passed away due to an extreme loss of blood. He was certain that the head would be in great physical condition and would be perfect for his creation. That night, he had gone to North Ridgeway Memorial Hospital. After disengaging the security cameras, Vincent made his way to the morgue and found the naked female body with his perfect head. When Vincent thoroughly examined the body of Annabeth Winters, he couldn't understand what had caused this once living beautiful girl to die from such an extreme loss of blood. His research on Annabeth Winters showed that she had been a top-level athlete from North Ridgeway University, so she was not a dangerous criminal. Vincent's creation would have the perfect head and brain of Annabeth Winters. It had taken Vincent a great deal of time to properly attach the spinal cord to the brain of Annabeth Winters. Upon successful completion, he stitched the flesh together to finish making the head a part of the body. Vincent hooked up the completed body to the multiple machines to both inject and conduct the circulation of blood. All he needed now was the perfect storm to grant him that one jolt of powerful lightning in conjunction with his ultraviolet ray to bring his creation to life. His Christmas wish couldn't have been granted soon enough. This Christmas season just happened to be unseasonably warm, guaranteeing a green holiday. Vincent heard the loud rumbling and knew that he needed to act quickly. After he finished wrapping the body in special bandages to help evenly distribute the forthcoming electrical current, all was ready. He threw the switches to both open the panel in the roof and send the body upward until it was outside and exposed to the storm. Vincent monitored his instruments closely. When the needles and digital displays spiked in their readings, he knew that the lightning had struck the rods at each corner of the slab and had sent millions of volts throughout the body, in conjunction with the ultraviolet ray that he had mounted just above. Vincent brought the body back down, closing the roof panel. When the slab was back on the floor again, Vincent waited for any sign of movement. He didn't have to wait long when a hand started to move. "It's alive!" he gasped. "It's alive! My God! I've succeeded!" He took his scissors and proceeded to cut the wrappings to reveal the creation's head. Then he cut the wrappings to reveal her hands and feet. It struck him odd that the creation's stitched areas were quickly healing up into a single unified flesh. He heard his creation moaning and knew that she was scared. He looked into the beautiful face of his creation. "It's all right. You're going to be just fine. I'll take very good care of you." The creation regarded her creator for a moment and screamed. Then she started heaving. Vincent saw that his creation was angry now. Very angry. She screamed again to show her rage. Then Vincent noticed that the creation's eyes were glowing red. It was during her third scream, one for freedom, that she broke the iron shackles that had secured her wrists and ankles to the slab. "No! Stop!" Vincent held out his hands to try to take hold of her, to calm her down. The creation quickly grabbed a heavy table nearby and flung it at her creator. He ducked to avoid serious injury. When Vincent got to his feet, the creation screamed with rage again. Seeing the door to her right, she proceeded to walk to it. To her freedom. "Stop!" Vincent yelled at her. When the creation had reached the door, she found it was locked. She smashed her fists through the thick wooden door as if it were brittle. It was then when Vincent saw the full-length mirror near the control panel. The creature had no reflection. It was then that Vincent Frankenstein had gotten his answer as to why the body of Annabeth Winters was in such good condition in spite of a loss of blood. The young woman had been sired by a vampire. In utilizing her head, Vincent had made an even worse mistake than what Henry before him had made. No, he had not given his creation the brain of a dead criminal. He had given his creation the head of a newborn vampire. The creation easily smashed through the French doors and walked down the steps to the front yard to continue her escape. The rain poured on her seemingly mummified body. The creation relished her freedom in spite of the weather. She came to a dirt path and walked it for several minutes before she arrived at a road. Seeing a sign with an arrow that pointed left, she turned in that direction and headed to Strickfield. The roads were deserted as she walked to her destination. When she entered the Strickfield village limits, she noticed that every house was bright with Christmas lights and decorations. There were even houses with animatronics doing their programmed actions. As the creation stared at this winter wonderland, she started to become uncomfortable. She growled and clutched her throat. She looked and saw a man working to replace a few bulbs in a string of Christmas lights. She hissed with delight and began to make her way towards the man. When she reached him, the man saw her bare feet and looked up at her bandaged body. "Listen, you! Get the hell off my property!" he grumbled. "Not unless you want me to call the..." The man fought to break her iron grip as she held his coat and hair. She tilted his head back to fully expose his neck before opening her mouth to reveal her sharp fangs. The man screamed as she bit into his neck and began to drink. The creation felt herself becoming stronger and more vibrant with each swallow of blood. When she was finished, she shoved the corpse away from her. The creation heard other sounds nearby, mainly a car engine. She looked and saw the car in another person's yard that had damaged an animatronic Santa Claus. Shortly after, 4 high school kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, got out of the car. One of the girls pointed to the vandalized Santa. "Fuck you, Principal Van Diest!" The other girl kicked the Santa head that had fallen at her feet. "Yeah, go get fucked, you motherfucker." One of the guys pointed to the house. "Hey, we should see if Principal Van Diest is home. Then we can smash his door in and kill his ass." The other guy muttered, "I can't believe that son of a bitch expelled us from high school, just because Stevie tripped little Aileen Donnerly in the hallway yesterday." The girl named Stevie turned and shoved the guy. "And then that fucking bitch Bella Tabon beat the shit out of me for it." Bella Tavon beat the shit out of all of us, the other girl yelled. But Principal Van Diest expels us. I say we beat the living shit out of Van Diest. Then we find Bella Tavon and fucking kill her ass too. Stevie slapped the other girl on her arm quickly. Hey, look! The four of them turned their attention to the creation. One of the guys started laughing when he saw her staring at them from nearby. Is that bitch dressed up like a mummy? The other guy yelled to her. Hey, airhead, Halloween was 2 months ago. It's not trick-or-treat weekend, bitch, Stevie added. None of these houses are giving out candy. But we'll beat your fucking ass if you don't fuck off, the other girl further added. When the creation wouldn't walk away, they got back into their car. The guy driving turned the wheel towards the creation and hit the gas. Yeah, run that fucking bitch over, Stevie yelled. The creation didn't look the least bit afraid. In fact, her eyes glowed hot as she screamed with rage and raised her fists. As the car was about to hit her, the creation brought her fists down on the car's hood and hit it with enough force to both stop the car dead in its tracks and make the rear end go way off-road and slam back down just as hard. The creation moved the vehicle and saw the four enemies who had pissed her off. They were moaning in pain. The girls in the back were bleeding from their heads. As for the guys up front, they were both on the hood after crashing through the windshield together. She could smell how delicious the red leaking liquid from their wounds was and grabbed the driver. He screamed as the creation drank him dry. After tossing him aside, she grabbed the other guy and drank him up. That left only the two girls now. The creation moved to the passenger side and ripped the door off. She reached inside and pulled the girl next to Stevie out. She held her by her hair with one hand. With the other, she grabbed the neck of her turtleneck sweater. The girl cried out when she felt the creation's fingers pierce her flesh. She screamed as the creation pulled down fast, ripping the front of her turtleneck sweater away past her stomach, tearing all the flesh beyond with it. The creation threw the girl onto her back, leaving her vital organs exposed as blood pooled around the body. Stevie saw this and screamed in terror. The creation heard her and screamed with rage yet again. She moved to the driver's side door and ripped it off, throwing it aside. She reached in and grabbed Stevie. She pulled her out of the car and held her where she stood. "What are you?" Stevie choked out. As the creation moved her hands to the sides of Stevie's head to crush her skull in, she felt 2 sharp jabs on her shoulder blade. She screamed as she felt the voltage go through her entire body, making her release Stevie. When the creation refused to fall, the voltage only seemed to increase. She turned and saw Vincent Frankenstein at the other end of the taser rifle. She grabbed the cables and yanked hard enough to pull the rifle away from him. When the rifle landed in front of her, she stomped on it with one bare foot to snap it in two. "You are my creation. Stop this at once," Vincent yelled. The creation screamed with rage and stretched her hands out into claws. As she was ready to attack Vincent, they both heard a low moan from Stevie. Seeing that the creation was distracted, Vincent rushed at her and threw his body into her to knock her down. He moved quickly and lifted Stevie into his arms as the creation suddenly sat up. Vincent ran as fast as he could and through some nearby yards. Fortunately, he knew Strickfield quite well. The creation would not catch him and Stevie so quickly, at least not so long as she hadn't yet understood all of her potential vampiric powers. The creation, frustrated that she had lost her 2 victims, looked up and screamed so loudly that anything of a fragile nature nearby would either break or crack. When she finished, she turned and continued walking through Strickfield. The next morning, Christmas Eve, The creation awakened and left the abandoned barn that she had taken shelter in. It had finally stopped raining, but it was quite cloudy and chilly. She seemed disoriented at how much more light was outside compared to the darkness of the night before. Just the same, she began to walk again. The creation would find its way to Strickfield Town Center Mall. The creation walked in and saw that many people were going in and out of the stores or doing business with vendors at kiosks. But what really intrigued her at that moment were the many little versions of the people. As she watched the smaller people move about, her facial expression softened. Until... "Hey you! You can't be in here without any shoes on! You're gonna have to leave!" The creation glanced to see a fat security guard next to her. She ignored him and started walking again. "Hey!" The guard grumbled and grabbed her arm. The creation screamed in anger before she grabbed him and sank her fangs into his throat, which caused panic among the shoppers who saw. After tossing the body aside, she screamed at the people and went for them. She had killed and drank 2 more before a little boy had crossed in front of her. The creation picked up the boy. "Stop!" the mother called out. "Please, don't hurt my baby!" The creation looked at the woman only for a moment before returning her attention to the boy. After examining the boy, she finally lowered him and let him go. The mother quickly snatched up her son and ran as fast as she could. Suddenly, 2 police officers appeared with their guns drawn. The creation screamed at them as they fired at her. To their disbelief, the officers found their bullets were useless. She was on them the moment their guns were empty. After she drained them of their blood, she made her way through the mall. Many families scrambled to flee once they saw her. A few of the boldest dared to try and fight the creation, only for her to drink them up. Another fat security guard tried to take her down, but was quickly and easily thrown with one hand right through the little Santa's house at the center court. It seemed as if the creation would continue her reign of terror at the mall, but she reached the main doors and smashed right through them to finally leave. Some of the police ran after her to try and subdue her, but they would find their efforts to be futile. These officers were most fortunate that the creation only smashed them to the parking lot and left them with their lives. She screamed at them before she turned and continued on her way. Stevie opened her eyes and awoke to find herself covered up in a 4-post bed. She saw that she was wearing a gown and felt that she had a bandage wrapped around her forehead. She felt a little scared as she looked around and wondered where she was. "It's all right," Vincent said to her as he entered the room. "Where the fuck am I?" Stevie demanded. "You're in my home, young lady. I treated your headroom and put you to bed so you could rest." Stevie shrieked and pointed in a random direction. "That thing!" Vincent sighed sadly. "She's still out there, I'm afraid. I went out to try and find her, but was unsuccessful." Stevie understood immediately and pointed an accusing finger at him. "You created that motherfucking thing?" She sprang out of bed. "Fucking why?" Vincent held up his hands. "I am truly sorry for what she did to you and your friends, and nothing I can do will ever make up for that. I'll have to carry every death she's caused with me for the rest of my life." He lowered his hands and sighed. "I only wanted to be able to create life from death the way my ancestor did many, many years ago." Vincent explained everything to Stevie. The more he explained, the more Stevie became furious. She finally screamed at the top of her lungs and lunged at Vincent. She took him down and screamed more as she threw fist after fist at him. Finally, she fell off him and heaved. God damn you! God damn you! Yes, perhaps God himself will damn me to hell for what I've done, Vincent agreed. But I still have to find my creation just the same. But how the fuck will you kill her, asshole? Stevie mocked him. You fucked up by putting the head of a vampire on her. Vincent sat up and faced her. You believe in vampires? Stevie sneered in disgust. I was raped by one and survived. I ended up killing his motherfucking ass after he tried to sire me. She moved onto her knees and glared at Vincent with anticipation. I'm definitely going to help you kill that fucking thing. When Stevie saw that Vincent was apprehensive, she growled and attacked him, getting on top of him again. When he looked up at her, she glared down at him. You listen to me, motherfucker. She pointed in a random direction. That fucking thing killed my friends. It damn near killed me. How many more people do you think she's going to kill right fucking now? Huh? They're all on your fucking head. Okay, Vincent conceded. I was hoping to take her alive so that maybe I can fix her. Stevie got off Vincent and stood up. There is no fixing her. You know it, and I know it. Vincent got up and faced Stevie. I'll get you some fresh clothes, then we'll go look for my creation. Stevie continued to glare at him with distrust as he left her room. The creation walked onto the Strickfield University grounds and looked at the Christmas decorations. She didn't understand why there were so many brightly colored lights, the multiple snowmen, or even the fat men wearing red and white suits. She really didn't understand too much except that people were after her, that she needed to feed on their blood, and that she now felt certain desires growing inside her. The creation continued walking the campus, but she didn't see anybody. Of course, she couldn't have known that nearly every student had left Strickfield University for the holiday break. She screamed in frustration at not getting what she desired. She approached a nearby animatronic Santa Claus and sent its head flying right off its shoulders with a quick punch. She reached inside its open neck to kill it some more. The creation screamed and became angrier as the high voltage surged through her body. She stopped the voltage by ripping the animatronic Santa in half. Jesus Christ! What are you doing? Someone called out to her. The creation was ready to scream at the person, but she quickly stopped and calmed down. She allowed the chunky guy with glasses to approach her. You all right? She didn't answer, but continued to look him over. Wow, you sure are tall. He looked down at her bare feet. And you don't even need heels. Then he saw that her wet bandages had parted enough in several places to reveal that she didn't have any clothing on underneath. At all. Hey, you can't stay out here looking like that. If the police see you... He took her hand. Come on, my house is just over there. I can give you something to wear out of my sister's room. The creation allowed the guy to lead her off campus and to the nearby house where he lived with his family. He brought her inside and took her upstairs to his bedroom. My parents aren't home, but I'll take care of you. Listen, do you have a name? When she still didn't answer him, he pointed to himself. I'm Reggie. Reggie. When she remained silent, he motioned for her to stay. I'll get a scissor and some clothes. The creation waited until Reggie returned with the promised items. He set the clothes on his desk and proceeded to use the scissors to cut off her bandages. After several minutes, he had her completely naked. You know what? Maybe you should take a shower first, Reggie suggested. The bathroom... The creation seized Reggie and kissed him hungrily. Reggie couldn't believe his luck and kissed her back. She ripped his t-shirt off like it was tissue paper and sat down on the bed. Reggie looked down at the beautiful naked creation who truly desired him. She growled and ripped his jeans open. He eased her onto her back, got naked, and climbed on top of her. Reggie had finished drying the creation off after giving her a shower. Then he dressed her in his sister's clothing. Even though the items fit, they were still too small for her. The t-shirt revealed her full stomach, and the jeans were more like capris. The creation looked at him and attempted to smile for the first time ever. Then she took his hand and held it between her two hands. She closed her eyes and let him kiss her lips again. He sat down next to her and admired her. "I can't believe we just had sex," Reggie told her. "This sort of thing just doesn't happen to me." The creation smiled for him a second time. Then she quickly turned her head when she heard noises coming from downstairs. "Somebody's home," Reggie explained. "Don't worry, nobody's gonna hurt you." The creation wouldn't release his hand. Only when he assured her that he would return did she let him go. He opened the door and headed downstairs. The creation heard talking, but she couldn't understand the words. It wasn't long after that she heard quick movements on the stairs along with Reggie yelling. Something was wrong. She stood up and moved to the door. She walked right through it, turning it into boards and kindling. She turned to see Vincent, Frankenstein, and Stevie in the hallway. She screamed angrily and moved at them. "Oh shit," Stevie shrieked. She raised her shotgun and blasted the creation in the shoulder. "No!" Reggie yelled. The creation only jerked back on its impacted shoulder and showed Stevie just how fast she could heal. Stevie and Vincent quickly moved back downstairs. They hadn't counted on the creation leaping all the way down the stairway. Stevie cried out in fright as the creation suddenly grabbed her and put her right through the front door. Then she turned to face Vincent and Reggie. For a moment, she seemed to convey betrayal towards Reggie. When she saw him shaking his head quickly, she realized he was innocent. Her creator and the girl had found her, somehow. Vincent raised his hands in front of him. "Let me take you home. I can fix you. Please, don't be like this. No more killing, please. Just come with me." The creation still didn't understand him, but she screamed with hatred at him. She was about to grab him when she took another shotgun blast, this time in the back. The creation turned to see Stevie. "Come and get me, you fucking bitch," she called out as she turned and ran. The creation screamed and darted outside. It hadn't taken the creation long to almost be upon Stevie. Suddenly, she felt Vincent jumping onto her back. As she was about to grab him, she felt the sharpness of a needle going into her shoulder, followed by something squirting out. Vincent dropped off her back and stuck her with a second needle. The creation fell to her knees and then onto her side. "We don't have much time, Stevie. Let's get her back to the lab," Vincent said. "I can't believe I'm agreeing to let you try and fix her," Stevie muttered. "You should just fucking kill her." When Stevie saw Reggie coming outside, she pointed right at him. "Shut the fuck up and get back inside, you fucking fat fuckstick." "What are you going to do with her?" he demanded. When Stevie raised the shotgun to him and pumped it, he quickly squealed and darted back inside. The creation opened her eyes and felt as if she was moving, yet she found she was incapacitated. She looked up and saw the sky was moving fast. She clenched her teeth and found the chain securing her wouldn't give. She growled through her teeth as she exerted her strength again. This time, the chains broke in several places. She moved to her feet and leapt from the pickup truck. As soon as she landed on her bare feet, she heard the truck brake to a halt. Vincent and Stevie got out. The creation looked at them and screamed the loudest she had ever screamed. The two of them tried to get back into the truck, but the creation moved to it quickly. She easily lifted the truck and threw it right off the side of the bridge they were on. The truck soon made a huge splash in the Castalia River, where the raging waters would carry it away. Vincent and Stevie turned to run, but the creation only had to leap to catch them. She backed them up to the edge of the bridge. It would take a combined, desperate attempt for them to survive. As Vincent injected the creation with his last 2 tranquilizers, and Stevie placed her shotgun under the creation's chin and blasted the top of her head off. The creation staggered back and fell off the side of the bridge. She dropped into the Castalia River, where the raging waters quickly carried her body away. "You think we stopped her?" Stevie asked quickly. Vincent sighed. "I don't know. I just don't know." On Christmas morning, the creation had awakened. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious, but she was lying on the side of the river. She slowly pulled herself to her feet and felt her head, which was fully restored. She didn't understand how she had survived, and she really didn't care. There was only one thing that creation did care about, and put her hands on her swollen belly. Vincent Frankenstein hadn't counted on the creation's vampiric healing factor restoring the ovaries that he had removed prior to giving her life. On Christmas Eve, she had conceived life with Reggie. Later on Christmas Day, her first child would be born. The first child of a superior new race. Ooh, who's feeling warm and fuzzy after that one? Thank you so much to Rob Fields for yet another wonderful trip to Strickfield. All of Rob's stories take place in a weekly spooky universe of sorts, and I always enjoy coming back for a visit. Speaking of visits, I saw Rob in person in Canton, Ohio last week, and thanks for hanging out with me, my friend. I'm glad we could enjoy a couple burgers together and talk about all the exciting things we have in development for the show. Speaking of exciting developments, I want to say a huge thank you to our Patreon backers. We're at 82 Patreon backers. That's the most we've ever had, and I would love to see it hit 100 with your help. So if you're feeling a little generous, you have just $1 a month to spare, head over to WeeklySpooky.com, click on Patreon, and become a member of our Spooky Syndicate. You'll get exclusive sneak peeks at films, shorts, photo sessions, and so much more, and some exclusive podcasts here and there. So I think there's never been a better time to sign up for our Patreon. Again, go to WeeklySpooky.com and click on Patreon. And speaking of the wonderful folks at Patreon, I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who give just a little extra to help us keep the spooky coming every single week. And in exchange, I love to say their names in the episode. Those folks are Gino Lyons, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, Jeff and George Hilton, Craig Cohen, Rob Fields, and Kevin Fry. Thank you all so much for helping us keep this show going every single week. And in case you missed it at the beginning of the show, we will be doing a bonus Christmas episode on Christmas morning. So be ready for that while you cook that holiday ham, my friends. But anyway, it's time for me to get out of here, so make sure you go to WeeklySpooky.com, click all the links, get yourself a t-shirt, and for myself, Ray Mattis, our composer, and my producer, Dan Wilder, I will talk at you later.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.